Good evening, everybody. My name is Tony, and I am an addict. And tonight's topic is very, very significant in that it applies. Because I saw it written, people that use drugs go to hell before they die. And a lot of us have been in hell. And when you're in hell, you think you can never get out. You've been down for so long, you don't know what up is, and there is no hope, and there wasn't. I remember when there was no message. Everybody went on and on for years, and most people never did come into Narcotics Anonymous and get a new life, you see. And the message was crystal clear as it was when I first came in. You don't have to use. And we just proved the point in New York City when we had many, many thousands, countless thousands of people meeting in Midtown Manhattan and no one using and everybody having a good time. These people came back from hell, you see. And it's because of what we do that medicine and religion and psychiatry weren't the answer. In desperation, we sought help from one another. You see, that applied 13 or 14 years ago, and it applies today. It really does. And when we talk about reaching out, I'm talking about being able to stop shooting dope and snorting coke and smoking reefer and drinking and taking pills, you see. I'm talking about something very heavy, and sometimes some people can't seem to get a grip on it. Really. Merely, they tell you they can't stop. And you can understand this. But it's not because of example, because the example is here. Some people want to remain in hell. Some people don't want to stop using. Some people want to continue the misery. Some people like being in that space. Some people need that jarring experience. Some people come back. Some people walk across the other side of the room to the sanity. Some people remain in hell. I can talk about that a little bit because I was there for a long time. Didn't start out in the beginning like that, but sure enough, I did end up in Bellevue. Really, on the solarium. Trying to light up a Pell-Mell with a little bit of striker and a match took me a fucking week to light the cigarette. It's the truth. And I remember looking out at this little window, how it was out there. Always dreaming. Always dreaming. Man, I tell you, it looks like it's springtime out there. And people are doing stuff, and people are walking around, and people are not hassled by the obsession to use. You see, and I didn't know how to master that. I didn't know how to stop using. I had to learn that. I learned that in Narcotics Anonymous. I learned in Narcotics Anonymous that you don't have to use, that you'd be comfortable when you don't use, that you could build a strong foundation in relationship to your recovery, and you can be comfortable with yourself, and you don't have to use drugs. And for a guy like me, that was miraculous to learn that. Because I was a hopeless case, you see. And I was in hell every day. Every day was my friend used to say, every day is a Lewis and Clark expedition. That's what he told me. He was twisted and demented. His thinking mechanism was shot, you see. And I knew him from when we were very young. He used to say, let's live off the land. Here's what he told me one morning. When we got up off of that rooftop, he said, let's live off the land, Tony. I said, well, listen, we're not in Kentucky someplace. We're in New York City here. What the fuck are we going to do this? We had more bad days more often than not, you see. Really. And there was no such thing as help or being treated decently, you see. Being treated decently when you're sick and you're uptight and somebody treats you decent. You get decent medical treatment. This means a lot. Or somebody has a compassionate word for you, or the empathy of the addict, for the addict. You really sense this and you gear in on this because you've been down for so long and been mistreated for so long. I'm talking about bleeding, you know. One day I was out there bleeding, you see. I didn't even bother to get my hand stitched up. I just went right on down and did the same thing, you know, over and over again. That was more important. That was always more important. But if you take that away and you devote your psychic energy to doing other things, you'd be surprised what you can accomplish in your life. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. If you know, a lot of people tell me they want romance. I tell them this way, you know, romance has nothing to do with recovery. In Narcotics Anonymous, romance has nothing to do with recovery. However, if you do get recovery, you will have romance. More romance than you can handle. A lot of us don't believe that in the beginning, but it happens. It's true. Literally, because a lot of us hear a lot of things, and being that we're in this space, we feel it doesn't apply to us. You know, we're in this self-deception bag, and the way to get out of a self-deception is another addict helping you. That one addict helping another is without parallel. And a lot of us suffer from the self-deception thing. We begin to deceive ourselves with misinformation about how we feel about things going on around us, you see. And then you compound that by self-centered, selfish, immediate gratification, ego, you know, and there you have addictive traits that make up the emotional makeup of the addictive personality. Okay? And a lot of us are like this. And if I'm wrong, tell me. I don't want to come off like Dr. Jarecki, you know. But I've been around a long time, and I could tell you about it. I know myself, and I know what boundaries and my limitations, you know. Some people some guy, a hopeless crack addict told me, do you mean to tell me I can't drink on New Year's Eve? I can't have a cream de minty on New Year's Eve? On New Year's Eve? I told him, look, cream de minty, it's nothing to do with what you do. What you do is, you puffin' lovely, I'm puffin' lovely. That's what that woman said. I said, what do you do? She says, I puff lovely. I said, where do you stay? She said, anywhere I lay down my stem. I said, you must be traveling light, honey. It's true. Let me just tell you this. You know, the names, the manifestations of the insanity may have changed in the course of the years. Okay, now they got all kind of other things going on, right? Oh, by the way, crack was invented in this country. I didn't know that. I thought some outside force did this to fuck us up, but it wasn't the case at all. The shit was invented in Oakland, California. They invented that form to drive the people mad in the least amount of time. Now let's drive the people crazy in the least amount of time and take all the money we can from them, fuck their lives. Later for their lives and their children and their mothers. And everybody else. And that's their psychology. They don't care. There's the arrestors. The arrestors are out there ready to arrest the arrestees. Dig it? We are the arrestees. We are the receivers. You see. I remember there was one time I couldn't stop getting arrested. I could not stop getting arrested. I used to keep getting arrested for consorting and back. I spend my adolescence being arraigned. I'm not kidding you. And you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to go to the prom. I never did make the prom. However, I did make the prom later on in my life. My prom night was being a chairman of WCN 813 in New York City in 1983, and that was the most significant thing in my life, and it really made me feel good. And when we came back here 10 years later, or 13 years later, watch this happen to the last weekend, everything was everything. And that's the truth. So then I did because of Narcotics Anonymous, my life took on meaning, and it became enriched by friendship, by love, by understanding, by spiritual contact, by believing, by feeling okay. The absence of animosity, the absence of fear, okay? To be able to walk the streets and know in your heart, no matter what happens, you don't have to pick up. This is part of it. If you, not unless you want to go back. There are those that revert back, however. So there I was, and somebody told me, well, for God's sake, you're getting arrested all these times. You know, my wife was a hopeless drug addict also. And we were married in the probate court on 3rd Avenue, I remember. And this woman came out and just said a few words, and we were gone. Next thing you know, we took a bus down to Fox Street. We copped a half a load, and we went up on a rooftop, and we had a wonderful honeymoon. You see, this is how it was. We were so very much in love, you know. It was like a Norman Bates type of situation, but it's okay. She was the kind of girl, too, we loved each other so dearly. She was the kind of girl, if you blinked your eye, you got beat, you got a water shot. You never even knew if she was telling the truth or not. She shot all the dope and making believe the dope was no good, but you could catch her not. Boy, did I get mad. That's how it was. Somebody suggested we get on the methadone program. So he said, why don't you get on the methadone? You see, so we got on the methadone program in the beginning, and then at that time they would build you up to 150 milligrams of methadone, And during this time, she used to light up cigarettes and go like this. She'd light up and go, shit, I smell roast beef burning. Now it's your titty, it's on fire. The cigarette just burned right through your fingers. Shit, the cigarette burned right through my finger. Did you feel that truck crashing into your spine, severing your fucking spine? I didn't feel nothing. Is that what happened? Well, there's your legs over there on the other side of the street. Can you dig it? So we walked in with a problem with heroin. We had a problem, we were addicted to heroin. Then after we got on the methadone, 150 milligrams, we had a problem taking a shit. You see, it somehow it just bind your bowel movements. It had something to do with the bowel movements. So what happened was, I went to the doctor and I said, Doc, we've been on a methadone. I'm having a hard time. I can't take a shit. He said, well, it's not the methadone. Try these Metamucil things. Stick them up your ass. Actually, to have a normal bowel movement, you needed a half-inch of dynamite stuck up your anal cavity, you light the fuse, and then you would probably blow the stuff loose. I hate to be so blunt. Forgive me. I've had a hard weekend. Bear with me. I'm trying to tell you how it was. So we got on this thing, and we got, So what happened, we were literally walking zombies. I'm talking about the purveyors of zombieism. And they were accommodating. And they'll accommodate you if you want to be accommodated out there. You want to go into these loony bins? They're waiting for you. You see, they'll take advantage of you by virtue of your addiction, you see. They will. And they'll take all comers and put you down and swear that they know the answer. I know that some places when you come in with a basic text, they take the basic text away from you. Any place like that, please. It just doesn't help. The basic text is written by addicts, for addicts, and it has what we need. It's simple, and it's comprehensible. You see, so I've been in hell for a while. And I met Lucifer and Beelzebub. I really did. I did. No, I did. My wife was into the macabre. See, as we progressed into this addiction, she was into the macabre. She used to get this speed, and she wake me up one night, she woke me up and said, look, Marilyn Monroe's autopsy report. Yeah, really, she said, look, Dante's impression of the devil. And it planted in my mind, and then I was driving down on the west side, and sure enough, I went to one of them old warehouses one night. I had to relieve myself, and I saw you know what? I saw the impression. It was just lights shining in, but to me it was the impression. And there I was running to the west side. I left everything there. Running! And there was nobody chasing me. It was all in my mind, you see. My friend the gangster used to say, well, before you run, Tony, for God's sake, make sure somebody's chasing you. It makes so much more sense that way. He said, and if you're doing nothing, you never know when you're finished. You really don't. So this is what happened. So we got off the methadone after years and years of being enslaved. Then I would say, what diabolical mind came up with something that would take the euphoric effect of heroin away from us? How mean can they be? They must be up working overtime thinking of the shit. So she said, Tony, she used to call me Tony, we can shoot coke and speed. So we got onto this coke and speed kick till we got such headaches that she used to have to fix up me. I used to say, honey, fix me up a wet bandana, will you? And tie it around my head. Because my head was splitting because of the shit we were taking. Oh, by the way, at this time, there was no message of recovery. There was no message of recovery. And what she used to do is she used to go into the bathroom and she bent a toothbrush and she used to get loaded and go in there and clean in between the tiles. And I tell you, the bathroom was spotless. I told her, you coming out of there, you've been in there 4 days. You're not very interesting to be with. That was part of the treatment. Know the treatment for what it is. I have no doubt that you can clean up in Narcotics Anonymous with the philosophy of recovery and have a decent life. This is what recovery would afford you. Recovery is beautiful. Recovery is freedom. Recovery is mobility. Recovery is loving your children to the fullest. Recovery is being in love. Recovery is treating your folks okay. Recovery is people wanting to have you around. Recovery is being decent, you see. Recovery is being one of the good guys, you see. And it affords you all this. And a lot of people become very complacent in this. And we have a tendency to become ungrateful for some of the stuff. I see people, I know friends of mine that have everything that are very miserable. Then I know friends of mine that have a little bit and they're okay. And I had another friends have everything and they seem to be swinging with it. You know what I'm saying? Enjoying it. Getting out of themselves. A lot of us suffer from this ego problem. We have ego problems. Some of us are vindictive, I noticed. Vindictive traits. And on it goes. However, as you recover, I found as I recovered, prejudice subsided. And now to the point where it's, I'm not geared into it. I used to come to a neighborhood, my neighborhood was very bad. The people that had a warp, their mentality was warped about everything. And they used to be very forceful. And, we couldn't go to music. We couldn't, in high school, I remember, I couldn't take music or art. Now they call it, that would be like you being a faggot. But nowadays they call it gay. And it's acceptable also. It seems to be more acceptable than that other word. And then they used to talk about being prejudiced and hating this group of people and for no reason. For no reason. I remember I had a crime partner, he died, but I loved him. He was black, and he lived on 149th Street, and me and him used to pull scores, and we got busted one time. We ended up doing, I think it was a bullet. And while we were in the place, we were in a dormitory, right, with the Spanish people here, the white people here, and the black people here, and we couldn't talk to each other. And we used to talk to each other when we were mopping the floor, like. And you couldn't smoke after each other. That was like a felony. These people were, but then when we got out, we got off after each other. You understand? And when I finished all that, and when I finally cleaned up, I found out that their code of the streets was full of it. I didn't want to have nothing to do with it, you see. And in Narcotics Anonymous, I take people as they come. You see? I tell you, I stopped that hate business. I mind my own business most of the time. I don't pry into other people's affairs. My people that I work with, I take sponsorship serious. If somebody comes up and asks me, will you help me and be my sponsor, then I make the decision and then I take it serious. And it has to do with a whole lot of stuff. Tapes and mailings and writing and together, I'll meet you here and meet you there. So that part of it. And then some of it becomes a very meaningful friendships. It's about one addict helping another. Okay. So this is part of it, the recovery process. My best suit is recovery. I have a vivid memory about what's happened to me, but I also like to talk most about recovery, about the freedom that you get just being able to walk around without being obsessed. You see, really. About being able to understand rather than be understood. I remember the other night I was with my mother's an invalid and I help her. I've been helping her. And I came in late. I forgot what it was, a couple of nights ago. And she put a note in my hand. And I went upstairs and opened the light and looked at the note and said, friend. I was really deeply touched by this, you see. I'm talking about being able to give back. I'm talking about being truly stand up. You see? A lot of my friends are suffering from the virus and none of them are using. And this is the most profound thing of all. I've watched my friends die, some of them. And the way dignity, it was with dignity. And some of them with smiles on their faces. Because of of being touched by the people that came to see them. You see. And this is what's happening. And we have to beat it. And this is part of it, the 1990s. We have to live with this. In the 1890s, it was the bubonic plague. Now we got this other terrible thing going on that I wish would go away. That sometimes we lose faith about this, and we say, where is the justice after a guy? I have a friend of mine using 25 years, went through hell. It was in hell, definitely in hell, and now found somebody, is in love, and all of a sudden he knows that he maybe won't have tomorrow. But he doesn't want to use. Then I have friends of mine struggling to live, and I have friends of mine struggling to die. I have friends of mine, and nothing wrong with them, and they're out there using. You see, never believing it could happen to them. That's the old story. That's how we feel. That won't happen for me. It'll never be. That won't happen to me till it happens. Then the joke is over. You see, then it becomes very serious. So then we begin to live a day at a time. I began to live this concept a day at a time, and it began to be very, very helpful to me. Now I live an afternoon at a time. I really do, literally. Well, hello, sir. How are you, doctor? Are you back? Very good. That's Dr. Jarecki. He's here for a consultation. Somebody suffering from affective schizophrenia, quite obviously. We'll have to prescribe a psychotropic, Zoloft. Then after a while like this guy's, I'm on Zol. Am I chemically dependent? No, you're fine. Oh, you mean you have a chemical imbalance? This is what they tell you. You're imbalanced. You've got to try some Zoloft and Haldol. And then you take the shit, and then all of a sudden you're like a vacuum cleaner. Kirby vacuum cleaner. The Cadillac of the line. And all these things are happening. All these pitfalls are happening. All this stuff goes on. And on and on and on and on. And on. And on. And some of us believe it. There are people that believe it. I believed that once an addict, always an addict. That's the way it was going to be done. I believed that one for about 28 years, I believe. 28 years, a long time. And here's what I used to say. There's nothing I can do. I can't stop using. And I wandered the streets watching everybody. Here's what I used to do. In the wintertime, when I'd be out there prowling, and I was always the same way. Always the same thing in my mind. Here's what I wanted. When we used to pull a job, they used to say, you're not scared, are you? I said, no, not at all. I was terrified. I was terrified of being with them because I knew they were crazy. They were liable to do anything. And all I wanted to do was, here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to find somebody nice and get a little ranch house somewhere and live, and you know, with the bacon crackling in the morning and Sunday morning and having a nice newspaper and peace. Without the cops. This is what I always had in my mind. And we used to be prowling around, like sometimes when it got really bad. Like first it used to get good. When you first got out, it got good. Then it got really bad. You know, you couldn't even go into stores because you looked terrible. You see, you looked bad. You couldn't even do that. So what happened was I used to look at people like in attic apartments, a guy making a hot chocolate for his old, and it may sound cornball to you, a guy making hot chocolate for his girlfriend and then for his old lady, and then you know, and being up there with him in the warmth, and there I was out there freezing, right, looking to do something, desperate, dope sick. And as the day wore on, it got more and more desperate. I remember one day I was just walking, and at the desperation, I climbed in a window. And I heard them watching TV. So I took the pillowcase, burglar that I was, and went around the room, and the next thing you know, I saw a figure in a doorway. Now, here's how I knew I was in desperate trouble. The guy was about 5'5", but he was 5 feet thick. His arms were 5 feet. He was like a small piece of heavy machinery. This is how I describe this guy. Now, the minute I knew that I was in desperate trouble is that when he grabbed me and he offed me and he rearranged the features of my face. I was on the floor. In 2 minutes, not even 20 seconds, he beat me to a frazzle. And the only way I got out of that was that he went up to get his brother-in-law, walked to the door, and I jumped that back out the window. Now I have the whole family chasing me down the main thoroughfare. Listen to this. Multiple contusions and lacerations around the nape of the neck and the face. Excuse me. Really. That's what I was. And then I crawled under a stoop and stayed there till it got dark. Well, listen to this. I was having a bad day. I didn't even bother getting stitched up or nothing. I just went on with it. You know, I had to do something. I did something bizarre. I forgot what it was. I didn't even want to say it. It was terrible. God knows. Now, I remember when we spent $200 and then we found out we didn't eat. It dawned on us we didn't eat in 4 days. So after that, we were starving. So we went into a supermarket and broke open a package of bologna, slapped it on the heel of a Wonder Bread. I was telling them, bring some of that warm root beer over here. Bring it over, fuck it. Bring some. Then we were having like a little picnic in the back of the back aisle. Choking it down. We were choking it down, you know. And the manager came out, what are you doing? We said, look at this guy. He's interfering in our lunch. That was our attitude, by the way. We had this outrageous attitude about society at large, about it they being prey to us, our prey, about having a distorted sense of thinking mechanism was all distorted. About everything was all right. No remorse. No remorse now. There was no remorse about, you know. I remember they copped a wallet and somebody said, throw it in the mailbox. You must be crazy. Get the fuck out of here. On and on. And there was no message of recovery, and there was no recovery. There was no peace. There was no calm. There was no assuredness pertaining to relationship to your addiction. Assured. You know, I tell the people I work with, listen, today I'm not going to do nothing. By the way, I'm not doing nothing today. Again, another day. Really going right back to no matter how long you've been clean, that you don't have to revert back. A reminder, vigilance, through vigilance we keep it. Otherwise it goes. When you drop your guard, that's it. And I've seen it happen to a lot of my friends. I've seen friends of mine go out after 10 years. And it's very difficult to come back to square one. But some of us, you know, then we take this person that I'm describing, myself, if you will, I'll be the example, and we put him in an environment that's eaten away by drugs. It's nothing but drugs. You see? And how do we survive? We survive by being vigilant, as I said. We survive by going to Narcotics Anonymous meetings. We go to Narcotics Anonymous to see our friends, not to only gossip and all that, to see our friends, how they're doing, the ones that are doing well, the ones that are doing bad, to be there for our friends, okay, to embrace each other. We do that. We have a lot of love. The love is the most powerful tool that we have for one another. Genuine affection. Not affection that's going to, not fraudulent affection, genuine affection. Okay? And like that. So that's what happened to me. There I was, a hopeless case, wandering the streets all those years, on the outside looking in, always wandering, always dreaming, daydreaming. I was a daydreamer. I used to dream of things. I remember I was in solitary confinement one time. I wanted to be smart. I wanted to be a smart guy. They asked me to take the garbage down from this dormitory that we were in. We were locked in. And I wanted to show everybody that I was really crazy. Mm-hmm. So I took the garbage cans, and instead of carrying them out, I threw them off. So, of course, they rang the bell and came up and beat me half to death and dragged me to the Bing. You know what I mean? So like that. So when I got out, you know, I thought, and while I was in there, I was dreaming, man, when I get out, I'm going to find somebody that I can be with. I'm going to have a nice place. I'm going to get a good job. I'm going to do all these things. You see? And when we got out, it was the same thing over and over and over and over again. There was no message of recovery. There was no Narcotics Anonymous. There certainly wasn't 10,000 people meeting on 42nd Street in New York City. They made a big statement this week. They really did. And people took note. I read something about the Senate Investigating Committee after Baltimore, Bullitt Stadium. They said we give millions of dollars to these therapeutic communities and all these other places designed to rehabilitate narcotic addicts. Yet we give nothing to Narcotics Anonymous, and they seem to do more than all these places combined, which is the truth. And we don't have to be, forensic scientists to figure this shit out. All you got to do is look and know. So we know that we're onto something, and we really feel special about it because it afforded us a different kind of a life of peace, a life of calm, a life of treating your mother okay, a life of getting together with your daughter, a life of whatever you design. You could be the architect of your lifestyle, and you could like the design that you could like what you design. You know, people used to tell me, get a job, take any job. Take anything. I remember. So I took anything. Listen to where I took anything. So I wound up on 125th Street in New York City, in the chimney of Frank's restaurant with a scraper. I said, "Fuck this." What happened to your job? I lasted an hour. Now you can bide your time. You take the bondage of an addictive obsession and become and experience the freedom. Now you could go on to do what you want to do. Some people, what do you want to do? And you can do it. You know, you can think about it. You can have a different life. A lot of us are hung up on immediate gratification. It has to do with relationships in Narcotics Anonymous. This happens a lot to people. Some people are ready for it. Some people are not. Some of them work out. Some of them don't. Okay? But you got to be ready to have a relationship. You have to have the capacity to get out of your self-centeredness and your selfishness and your ego long enough to be there for somebody else. You can't be completely self-centered and encapsulated in yourself if you expect to truly experience, being with somebody. And then there's rivalry, there's all kind of things happening. Ask me how I know. I met my wife in Synanon. That's where I met my wife. I met my girl on the methadone program. You see. And then I had girlfriends in Narcotics Anonymous. I have a lot of experience with all this. Compatibility. What to do, how to reach out, where to go, how to feel, how to give. You know what happened to me? One of the most significant things that happened to me in my recovery was that I developed the capacity to give. You see, in the beginning we used to give everything away. Terry said it the other night, literally anything we had that anybody was interested in, right? And I used to say, man, there's only 5 people in this meeting. This is never going to take. I was like the pessimistic person with the pessimistic viewpoint. But they were giving everything. Then there was 10. Then 60. Then we left and there was 250 when we left the place. You see. And this is what happened. It was just part of that. So I developed the capacity to give. And then I developed the capacity. I took the code of the streets and threw them out the window and started working the philosophy of recovery. About love your brother. I'm talking about brotherly love here. That's the message, carrying the message. My thing is carrying the message. Seems to be what I'm suited to do, and this seems to be what I do. So, but carrying the message is brotherly love. You see, because there are people that haven't heard the message. And you know the miraculous thing about where I work. I want to tell you what happens. I see people come in hopelessly addicted, users, crack smokers, dope shooters, like that. And then the place I work for, the beauty about it is we push Narcotics Anonymous really hard, you see. Like they bought everybody a ticket to this place in New York. Everybody got one, everybody went, everybody got exposed to be in that room saying, I can't believe this. Okay, they came away. So this is the kind of place it is. Now, I've watched people come in and stop using. And this is a miracle. This is very spiritual. I watched them start taking care of their kids. I watched them get their kids back. I watched them treat their mothers okay. I watched the attraction rather than promotion. They become attracted to it, and then all of a sudden they start spouting the words and they would come in with their hat, hey B, and all of a sudden start talking about, here's how they were. Now listen to what I found out. Check this out. Here's what I found out. If you wear your hat on side, which is seen, and then the lower you wear your pants, the more down you are. So they walk around like this. Hey B, hey B, hey B. That's what they call it. B. So dig this. And all of a sudden they're talking about, here's what this guy comes out. Together we can do what we can't do alone. Wow. Mind blower. Mind blower. So now after the meeting, everybody gets together and does the serenity prayer in the South Bronx, you see. Where you open a window and you hear gunfire going off. You see, and sirens and all kind of crazy shit happening. You wonder. You wonder. Where the hell is it going? I mean, I don't want to get into that part, but people think we're crazy. People in other countries think we're crazy. Really, they do, because of the lifestyle, whatever it is, the freedom, the freedom of recovery affords you the opportunity to walk the streets and be one of the good guys. And I always said this, but I never thought, I said, if you do good, good will happen to you. If you do good, good, I used to say over and over again, if you do good, good will happen to you. And I used to tell people, well, my life didn't turn out the way I'd like it to be. I said, well, that's okay, too. I said that a lot, too. I can't say that anymore. Listen to this. I got no complaints. Check it out. It turned into a very, very interesting turn of events. I mean that. Beyond your wildest dreams. And people used to say it. You're in for the ride of your life. I said, what the fuck is he talking about? Buckle up. You're in for the ride of your life. You're on a roller coaster ride. You're in for the ride of your life. Buckle up. What the fuck are you talking about? I had a friend, Frank, he used to say, I said, Jesus, I feel terrible. It bees that way. That's what he used to say. It bees that way. It bees that way. It bees that way. I said, will you shut the fuck up? So that's what happened. So that was one thing that recovery afforded me. The capacity to give. The capacity to get out of myself and get into another human being's story. To be able to be there for somebody. To be able to listen to the story. I went to an AIDS house the other night, a couple of weeks ago, and I walked in, there was 40 women in the basement. And I sat down there and I was talking to them. It was about a meeting, an H&I meeting, and I sat down and I got to know them all. And I stayed there 4 hours. 4 hours. I did not want to go, you see. I mean that. I got right into, I didn't know what else to do. My heart went out to the people. None of them wanted to use, by the way. With his life, there's hope. Here's what I say, don't quit before the miracle happens. You never know what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? So that part of it, to be able to give it away. To be able to take care of your children. To be able to have the capacity to get out of yourself to give to somebody else. No kidding. Not in the field. I'm not in working where you get paid. I'm talking about giving it away genuine. So I got some good friends too. I have a support system, and we really talk a lot. We laugh a lot. We do a lot of things. It has to do with recovery. The people that I seem to be attracted to are the people that feel about Narcotics Anonymous the way I do. I'm not talking about going to Paranoids Anonymous, where you can't get a meeting list. I'm not talking about going to Claustrophobics Anonymous, where they meet in a gym because they're suffering from claustrophobia. I'm not talking about hypochondriacs Anonymous. There's nobody there. They're all homesick or in the emergency room. I'm not talking about sitting on the fence. Because if you're not loyal to one, you're no loyal to none. You have no loyalty. A lot of people get all uptight about this. You know what I'm saying? They get all uptight about this. They do this, they go here. One of my friends calls them the thieves. They come in and take this and they take that and they go there and they do this and they take this. And here's what my AA sponsor said. Who gives a fuck? You want to hear what the fuck he says? I don't want to get political. Who really cares? If we want to hear what the fuck he got to say, then we'll go over there. My boss said, I don't go to Narcotics Anonymous. They curse down there. Here's what I said. He was a dope addict for 30 years. I said, what? I said, listen, you're talking to the wrong guy. What? Please, I don't want to hear that shit. And I talk about not reacting, but I do react to that kind of stuff. Here's what they said. Here's what they come in and say. They're all the same. AA and NA are all the same. And I said, well, let me tell you some of the differences. The differences in the first step, and we're talking about addiction, and we're talking about encompassing everything. We're talking about not zeroing in on a substance. We're talking about total abstinence. It's not said in the other literature. Totally. If we don't do it totally, there's no fence sitting here. You can't take a Valium and a Tylenol 3. You can't do that. You really can't. And if you endorse that kind of shit, you're going. You are going back. And most people go back, don't come back. That's right. And all these people, I remember up in Westchester, one night they put up the NA steps, the next night AA, they're all twisted and confused. You want to know something? They're all using. Listen to this one. Here I come out of the house and I see this guy collecting cans. He goes, Sonny, he's all bent over, he's got this. He says, I lost my heart, Tony. All I need is 200 cans for a bag. Wow. I said, here's a deuce. Now you need 160. And he was one of these big mouths and always doing this shit and always saying stuff and always going on over there. Well, I go there. And adamant and all that. Now look at him hobbling around. You see, the other guy living under the viaduct. You stop for the light and he jumps out with a squeegee. At first he had a Frigidaire box, you know. He was living in a refrigerator box. Then he started adding rooms, additions. Now he's got a whole thing. And he used to say, well, I guess the other fellowship. Now look at him. Listen, I'm not knocking. I feel bad for him. Listen, let me help you. Let me help you. Really, but that's what happens to the people. Shit, if it could turn a guy like me, it could happen for anybody. I was supposed to be hopeless. A hopeless case, you see. I walk the streets and smile in the sunshine. I could drive around and listen to the music. I used to need a reefer this fucking fat. Just to listen to the music. I was lonely. I tell you, one time I was lonely. I was on the lam. I beat a friend of mine for a package. He was a killer, the guy. And he said, I'll get you. So I was hiding. So I was in this room, and I said, geez, I picked up the paper and said, 3 months went by. I was desperately lonely. I wanted to touch somebody. I wanted to reach out. I wanted to meet somebody. I wanted to do something. So I said, come to the singles dance. I breeze into the dance. I got this Dr. Kildare jacket on with this button popped out. I'm desperate, but you couldn't tell how desperate I really was. You see. So I breeze in there, the maitre d' says, now the ladies will ask the men to dance. The first thing I said, that nobody's going to come up and ask me to dance. Sure enough, somebody came up and asked, would you care to dance? Beautiful. So there we are dancing. I said, how about dinner and the movies next Saturday night? Fine. So all that week I was a flutter, man. I was like, oh, wow, happening. It's happening, you know? So then I breezed over there. But before I did, I shot up 2 speedballs. I drank a half a fifth of Beefeater's gin. I smoked some reefers, and my nephew came in and he gave me 4. He said, here, take some. Where you going, Uncle? I said, I got a date. He says, take some of these mescaline barrels. The kid was here. Put them under your tongue. Don't let them get on the enamel of your teeth. They'll rot your teeth out. So I said, that's my boy. Now there I went. Now I rang the bell. When I rang the bell, I noticed all the shit was hitting me. Here's what was happening. I was going up and down at the same time. And I noticed every time I blinked my eye, it was a different color. Psychedelic. Chartreuse. So she came out looking beautiful as a lovely flower. She came out. Off we went to Lucky Lil's table for 2 at a Harbor View. They give me the menu. Here's the guy comes with the menu. Now, they're piping in them. I would say Mozart. It's really Mozart. But in the Bronx, it's Mozart. So they're piping in this Mozart, and I'm thinking it's Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. You couldn't tell me it wasn't. So they give me the menu. I noticed the print was running off the page, jumping out of the Then the raisins came out. All kind of shit was moving on the table. Nobody was touching it. Then the raisins started walking. I said, oh, shit, the California raisins. What the fuck? She said, "You look terrible. I'm getting out of here." By that time, I fell off into the soup. I had all macaronis and peas all over my shit. I said, "Of course you're going to go. I'm a piece of shit." That was my attitude. So I went downtown. "Where you been, Tony?" My connection. It took him 45 minutes to open the door. He was a little paranoid. He had one of those police locks, and it took him a long time. It was like a vault in there. "Where you been, Tony? You got all macaronis all over your jacket and shit. What the fuck you been doing, man? Where you been, man?" You know what I'm saying? Well, recently it was different. I met somebody at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I came pressed. I had bread in my pocket. This is a recovery. Clicking on all 8, you know, this kind of thing. Flowers, if you will. We went looking at all this wonderful art from the Renaissance and the Baroque period. Of course, I tried to get into the conversation, being an art connoisseur of sorts. Dig it. Conversation flowing and going, and then afterwards a nice dinner, candlelight dinner. Then I told her, "Listen, if you don't invite me upstairs, it's okay. Your company was quite sufficient tonight. We'll do it again next week." She says, "No, come on up for a cup of coffee." Next thing you know, I'm looking at the music. "What would you like to do? Let's kick off." Tasteful. I needed, in the morning I was groping for the reefers. I used to smoke these reefers. I needed that. I thought I needed that. 30 years. We started out with one of them little scales, and in the end we got a scale that you could put an elephant. You could put an elephant on the scale. It's like, "How much you need? 30 pounds? Right here." That was just part of it. They used to say, "Hard drugs, are you on hard drugs or soft drugs? Are your drugs soft or hard? Are you taking hard drugs?" I remember my aunt and my uncle being outside my stepfather and my aunt being outside the bathroom door, and one of them saying, I remember my aunt saying, "Bill, he's in there taking the needle." And Bill would say, "He'll never get off the needle. He's on the needle." And that used to make me cringe, like, shit. I'll never get off the needle. I'll never get off the needle. He'll never get off the needle. You'll never get off the needle. You're fucked. You are fucked. Talking about coming back from the needle. Now it's... Now it's crackhead! Crackhead! Crazed crackhead! Apprehended! Watch your wallet! There's a crackhead around! Crackhead! What do? I smoke crack! Oh, crack! You'll never stop smoking crack! By the way, listen to this. I was going to be serious. I sure I was. I was going to do a serious thing here. So that's what happened. Another thing, I'll say the capacity to give. Now the capacity to stay in position long enough for something nice to happen to you in your life. In your life, and which unfolds. And you tell yourself, my God, look at this. Your faith being restored somewhat. Faith, the belief in something spiritual. Something spiritual is something you can't see and you can't touch, but sure enough, it's in this room here, it's in this convention, it was in New York, it's in Narcotics Anonymous. Okay? And, that's an hour, right? No, she said an hour. So what we want to do now is, I know that this is because the rest of this is thrown open, right? So here's what I want to say. I just want to conclude. I want to be brief. No, I do. Listen to this. I just want to tell you, I feel good. I really do. And I feel good, and I am in the process now of I'm not dreaming anymore. Now the dream has become reality. Can you dig this? And I really believe that if you've been in position long enough and you do the right thing long enough, it'll happen to you. And here's what I say about that too. Geez, if it could happen for me, it could happen for anybody too. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm talking about a happy ending. I'm not talking about sad and down and all that. I'm talking about a happy ending. I'm talking about making it. I'm talking about one day at a time or one afternoon at a time. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about being in position. I'm talking about doing the right thing. I'm talking about living right. I'm talking about feeling good. Although I felt good before, but I feel better now than I did before. And when 3 months, I felt all right. Then 6 months, I felt better. Then a year. Then 2 years. Then 5 years. Then 10 years. You see. So here I am, and I can't tell you that I have a problem with drugs. However, and I'm not even going to tell you that I got a problem with Tony. Okay, because I remember they asked Dutch. I was in Newark, and somebody walked in. This author walked in and asked Dutch, "How you doing, Dutch?" I just want to use Dutch for an example because he's my dear friend and I love him dearly. Okay, I do. I know him from day one. He was really strength and Leah and people like that. And Dutch said, "I'm doing great. I love my wife. I love my son. I like my house, and I feel good. I got no complaints." It's exactly what he said. And I was listening. If I was in a corner, I was listening to that, right? And that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about looking at the bad. I'm talking about looking at the good. I'm not talking about what you don't have. I'm talking about what you have. I'm not talking about, counting yourself out. I'm talking about being in. I'm talking about the people here. I'm talking about Narcotics Anonymous. I'm talking about embracing the people. I'm talking about recovering from addiction. I'm talking about getting out of hell. Okay? And this is where I'm at today. So I got to tell you, I really feel good. I like the space I'm in, right? Which is nice. I'm preoccupied, if you will. So it's cool. I'm cool. That's what you say. You cool, I'm cool, be cool. I smoke cools. You down, I'm down. Let's get down. Bob Barker, come on down. Our next contestant. So listen, I just want to conclude this, wrap this up. I want to wrap this up by saying that it's all due to the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous, to being a member in good standing, to doing service. H&I kind of guys. That's what we were. H&I, we still are. H&I is a form of the 9 steps. Somebody told me when you can't make amends to people that you hurt, do an H&I meeting. And as you do the meeting, you commemorate that to something that happened, and you start. So we've been doing this for a long time. We do a lot of H&I work. You know what I'm saying? We go into hospitals. We meet people afflicted with multiple diseases. You see, I got people writing for me all over the country. People that have diabetes, people that lost their legs. I remember I have a friend of mine, Bruce, up in Rhode Island, and when I saw him last, he was walking around. And he wrote me a letter from Michigan. I just want to relate. He said, "Tony, you got to come up to Michigan to this convention." And okay. So I said, yeah. And he said, at the bottom of the letter, he says, "You got to meet my CNI dog." So I immediately knew that he went blind. When I went up there, he not only went blind, but he lost both his legs. And he put these wooden legs on and walked up to the podium with his CNI dog. And that man deeply touched me. This guy's my hero, because he could get all the drugs in the world, but he's not taking any drugs. You see, he don't want to take any drugs. He's doing it like that. Now listen to this. Recently, this man got married. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? They call him the man on the hill. Again, a happy ending, no matter, against all odds. And this seems to be what we're pitted against nowadays with all this heavy stuff going on. So I say we got to be there for the people. And I say that it's been a privilege. It's nice to come up here and meet the people in New Jersey, and tell you about myself, and hope that you and thank you for being there for me. Okay, so listen to this. I'm one of your fans. If you're making it and you tell me you're making it, it tells me I can make it too. I learned that. Not to envy, but it happens. And it unfolds. Thanks a lot.
Love you.
Okay, that was an hour, right?